Welcome in to your PFF Draft preview show. Steve Palazzolo here, along with Sam Monson. Sam, we got plenty to talk about. We're going to go through the entire draft as far as position groups go, the strengths and weaknesses, all the quarterback discussion, of course, that's going to pretty much dictate the entire draft. So we'll go position by position, and let's start with the strengths and weaknesses of the draft. Let's start with quarterback being, I guess, strong at the top, but you never really have a strong depth when it comes to quarterbacks. Is that the best way to classify this class? You just have a bunch of guys at the top who could be first rounders, and then there's obviously a big drop off after that?
Yeah, I think this is a strong quarterback class. We're talking about 6 guys that could potentially go in the first round, 4 that will definitely go somewhere in the top half of the draft, or the top half of the first round, and then quarterback has become such a binary position that it almost doesn't matter what exists beyond that. You know, you've got the first round guys who people think might be franchise quarterbacks. And then you've got the guys that can't be. And you might take one of those later on, but it doesn't really matter where they are. So I think based on what we have at the top of this draft in the first round, it's a strong quarterback class.
All right, so the rest of the position group. So if your team needs a running back, I'm calling that strong at the top?
Yeah.
Or strong at the top and then strong pretty much with depth as well, right?
Strong period. I think this is a great running back class. If you need a running back, this is a great draft to be looking for one. And there may be a big gap between Saquon Barkley at the top, who people are talking about as a top 5 kind of prospect, and the next guys. But rounds 2, rounds 3, bottom end of round 1, you are going to get Pro Bowl players in the mid rounds of this draft, the running back.
Wide receiver. There might not be a true number 1 wide receiver in this class, so I'm going to call that weak at the top of the draft. But because there's a whole bunch of number 2 and 3s and slots and big guys and shifty guys, there's a variety there. I'm going to call it pretty deep when it comes to those middle rounds.
Yeah, and the NFL is all about roles of the wide receiver position now. You don't need to be a true do-it-all number 1 wide receiver. You can still be a really productive player in a specific role within an offense. You know, a Jarvis Landry, a guy that only really works the slot, works inside, underneath. There are those players in this draft. There are true possession guys. There's pretty much everything you need in this draft, just not a Julio Jones.
No Julio Jones in this draft. What about offensive line? This is another one where I think it's a little better than the tackle classes of last year, the tackle class last year that we only really had Ryan Ramczyk as a true first-round pick, and he showed it as a rookie. But I think there's a couple more first-round options at tackle and a much deeper group of guards and centers. Overall, it's a solid offensive line class and more top-end talent, I think, than we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, I think this is a better offensive line group than we've seen in a while. For the first few years that we've been doing college grading, we were kind of wondering, where are all the offensive linemen? Is this what today's NFL is when you come to the draft? Just a huge, is this why there's a tackle or an offensive line problem in the NFL? There's just no talent coming into the league. But this year we've actually seen some. There are some guys there that we like for once. It's an entertaining change.
We will get to it, though. There is a bit of a concern when you look at our horizontal board, which is where would we slot all of these guys? There's a little bit of a gap in our world, 2nd to 4th round, and a lot of NFL teams might push up what we would consider maybe some subpar offensive linemen. So we'll discuss them in a minute. Edge defender, this is not a good offseason in general to want a guy that truly can rush the passer off the edge.
Yeah, if you need pass rush help this year, you are in trouble because it was a very weak free agent group. There were not a lot of options there, and it's a very weak draft. There are not that many players there. There's a couple of guys that should go in the first round. You'll probably see 1 or 2 more get pushed into the first round just because of the dearth of players at that position. After that, the cupboard is bare.
And I would say defensive interior, if you need a guy on the interior that rushes the pass or even stops the run, it's pretty weak up at the top too, outside of a couple names. And the depth is also okay too. A lot of question marks, even starting in round 2.
Yeah, I don't think this is a good year for needing defensive linemen, period. You know, if you're looking for pass rush players, this is not the draft for you.
And then we go to linebacker. This looks pretty good, both ends, top end and middle rounds. Think there's some players to be had?
Absolutely. Linebacker, one of the strengths of this draft. There's some great players at the top. I think there's some really intriguing players in the mid rounds as well, and even some low round guys. There are guys that are going to go at the tail end of this draft that have a lot to offer, whether it's athleticism, whether it's intriguing production. Obviously, when you get to the late rounds, they don't have both, because if they did, they'd be first rounders. But there's a lot of players to be had.
And then cornerback, another one where there's a few guys at the top end we feel pretty good about in the first round, but there's a lot of guys in that second, maybe third round range where I think there's some pretty good value and pretty good depth. Not as good as last year, though. The comment I made about corners last year is you might be able to find starters in the 4th round at corner, and I still feel about last year's draft, but this year's not as deep, but still there were some players there.
I don't think it's as deep, particularly at the top. I don't think there's an amazing amount of first-round talent, but there's a lot of second, third-round guys that can make significant contributions to your defense. Again, like we said with the wide receiver thing, as a role player, there are a bunch of corners in this draft and safeties that can play a specific role for you and contribute.
One thing I do like is it doesn't seem like the NFL is just artificially elevating 6'1", 6'2" corners who don't play the game all that well and just throwing them in the first round mix. There's a lot of guys who are 5'10", 5'11", who can play, and they're getting first and second round hype.
Good, because I got sick of watching crappy tape on those guys endlessly.
I put them on your watch list just to make sure. You got to make sure that they can, they got NFL size, and a lot of them just not that great.
Yeah, it pleases me greatly to be able to watch a bunch of 5'10" corners that can just play.
Last position, safety. I love Derwin James at the top. I don't know that there's any other true first-round safety. I feel like the NFL might differ than us on that. In that respect, there's a few guys getting some hype, from Justin Reed of Stanford to Jesse Bates of Wake Forest. But because of that, I think there's a deep safety class. And much like some of those other positions, it's about role and fit and what you're asking these guys to do. So I do like this group of safeties if you're looking for specific roles to fill in your defense.
Yeah, similar to corner, I think there's that, a couple of players at the top. I mean, in safety, it really is just Derwin James at the top, depending on what you want to do with Alabama's Minkah Fitzpatrick. And then there's a little bit of a gap, but then there's a lot of guys in those mid rounds that fit that role player role. They can do a specific job for your defense and contribute early.
All right, so that's a basic overview of what we're looking at with this draft. We'll also say, really big picture, last year at this time we had far more second and third round grades than we have this year. I don't think as a whole the draft is as deep as last year. But again, this whole draft is going to come down to quarterbacks and where they're going and where they're slotting in. There's truly 6 guys who could hear their name called in the first round. So let's go through them, because I do think that opinions are going to be so varied with the quarterbacks. Each team is going to have just a different top 4, top 5, top 6. Explain why. PFF standards, what we've been breaking down the tape. We've graded every single play. I got my draft guide in front of me. Every which way we split the numbers. Our number 1 quarterback is
Baker Mayfield. Oklahoma quarterback Baker Mayfield. If 6 quarterbacks went in the first round, by the way, I'm pretty sure that would tie a record. Would be only the second time that's happened. I think the last time was the famous 1983 draft, the Marino Elway draft. So it would be a big thing.
Yeah.
That underlines the kind of talent we're talking about here, that if the 6 guys do go in that first round. Baker Mayfield dominated the PFF grading system. So that's our starting point. Highest 2 single-season grades we've given anybody since we've been doing this, so higher than anything Jared Goff did, Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, higher than any of those guys twice. His third season was still in the top 10 in terms of all-time PFF grades. His grading was phenomenal, and even just breaking it down beyond that, if you want to look into facets, if you want to look into areas, specific types of play, accuracy, we charted advanced ball placement, whether he put the ball right here, eye level, whether he put the ball out here, it was still caught, it's still an accurate pass, but it's not really accurate. It's just a pass that the receiver was able to bring in.
Yeah, we tried to separate catchable from putting it right on them, and he was the best at putting it right on his receivers.
Yeah, a good way of drawing the distinction. Was it catchable versus was it actually accurate? And again, you cut it down to that. Baker Mayfield is the best. The bottom line is there is almost no conceivable way that you can splice the numbers, the tape, anything, where Baker Mayfield isn't the number 1 guy in this draft.
But the narrative on him, which is used against him, and is actually true, is that he has it easy. Oklahoma system, and there's a ton of wide open throws, which is true. He had the highest percentage of open throws in the class.
Yeah.
He threw what percentage of screens?
20%.
20%. So 1/5 of his throws were screens. We're not even refuting that. But as I look...
Don't care.
Exactly. Well, when I look at my guide, it's where does he excel everywhere else? He's been the number 1 guy when playing under pressure. Number 1 most accurate quarterback on tight window throws. So when things get difficult, even though he has a lower percentage maybe of difficult plays, he's still the best in the class. And I think that's what's really separated him in our minds. The one other thing, too, our analytics team has done a fantastic job of figuring out what actually matters, because we've been trying to project college to NFL guys for years, and actually what matters at the NFL level is hitting open throws and doing it from a clean pocket. That's the majority of your throws, and I know it sounds easy, but the best quarterbacks do it at a higher level. Mayfield's been the best from a clean pocket and the best at just hitting open receivers and, like we said, putting it in the right spot. So he's just excelled. Every way we break this down in our draft guide, Sam, Baker Mayfield's coming out on top.
It's ridiculous. I mean, his numbers are absolutely mind-blowing. Somebody asked me today, what are the flaws in Baker Mayfield? Let's leave aside the attitude thing for a second, because that's more of a debate. But from an on-the-field point of view, what is the knock on him? And you mentioned one of them, the idea that this offense manufactures some easier throws for him. That is true. Our colleague Mike Renner doesn't like the fact that sometimes he holds the ball a little bit too long.
He did take 14 sacks last year that we accounted to him. That is far too many. He does try to make too many big plays outside of structure. Absolutely a weakness.
And that's going to need to speed up at the next level. And there are a few minor flaws in there. But even if you account for all that, even if you ding him for the fact that he played in the Big 12 where defense is optional, and by optional, it's not an option that's taken up very often. So even if you account for all of this stuff, it still doesn't account for the distance between Mayfield and everybody else in all of the categories. So we talked about how one of the most stable metrics is passer rating from a clean pocket. It's the easiest thing to do, but therefore it is the most predictive in terms of what's going to happen going forward. If you're able to do that consistently, that suggests better than any other number what you're going to be able to do, because that's the most of the plays you're going to see. Baker Mayfield, for his career, had an NFL passer rating of 134.3 from a clean pocket. That number is ridiculous. That was higher than the highest single season from any of the other top quarterback prospects by some distance. Like, there's no way that you can slice the numbers where Mayfield isn't number one.
The one other potential weakness that people have talked about is his arm strength.
Well, that's just wrong.
And it's just wrong. I mean, there's multiple throws on tape where he's throwing the ball 55, 60 yards, and not just throwing it, I mean putting it where he wants and off platform. So the arm's good. We like Mayfield. All the numbers stack it up. Find them all in the PFF Draft Guide. I think there's some debate internally as to who our next guy is, but I think the next two guys for most people here, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, both guys showed well in some important numbers. For Darnold, he was right up there behind Mayfield in all of the accuracy stuff.
Well, let's do it this way. Who's your number two quarterback?
I'm calling it Sam Darnold because he wins in the right places. He can make these special NFL throws. I think he's got a little bit of that late game magic. And if you take away 4 games, and I know you can't do that, if you take away 4 games, he is the number 2 quarterback grading-wise. Last year, he was the number 3 graded quarterback in the entire nation outside of the 4 games when he was really bad.
How bad were those 4 games?
Okay, he was worst in the nation during those 4 games. The turnover-worthy plays were crazy. I get it, but he was second in the draft class in big-time throw percentage. Those are those special big, NFL-type throws, tight windows, feel over the middle of the field, anticipation. Darnold has it all. His high end is as good as anybody in the class.
His high-end throws are very pretty. My second favorite quarterback, and I don't love the next group. I think this draft is Baker Mayfield over here, and then there's a gap. And if you don't get Baker Mayfield, there's some guys you might be happy with and you can turn into quarterbacks, but that's the guy. After that, my second favorite guy is Josh Rosen, UCLA quarterback. We threw on his tape yesterday, not even looking for him, looking at his left tackle, Colton Miller. And the throws that Josh Rosen was making were insane. They were crazy. His high end, I think, like Darnold, is fantastic. He is, I think, more inconsistent. He's one of the more inconsistent quarterbacks in this draft. He has a little bit of that, it looks pretty coming out of his hand, which I know is not a big thing.
Tight spiral, everything.
But it does certainly, you notice it on tape. There are plays that he throws where it just looks fantastic. The Darnold throws, there are more of those that look wobbly thing that just happen to land in the right area, But I'm more Manning? Yeah, exactly. I'm more confident in Josh Rosen's consistent ability to put the ball there with the right kind of velocity. I really like what he can do, but that inconsistency leads me to think that he might end up being another Eli Manning, another Jameis Winston, a guy who's going to be maddeningly inconsistent, but you might get that run. That 2011 Eli Manning where he puts it all together for 6 games and takes you to the promised land.
This is why I think if you actually stacked these guys up like the 2004 QB class of Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, and Eli Manning, you might see player grades that are similar. I don't know who's Roethlisberger or who Rivers is, but I know that Josh Rosen can be Eli Manning, where there's a bit of a roller coaster every year. Roethlisberger's always really good, and he's got those Super Bowl runs. That might be Darnold, and Rivers and Mayfield might be the same guy. Rivers has really probably been the best quarterback out of those 3. I think it's between him and Big Ben. But my point is, you've got different style quarterbacks. My concern with Rosen, he has all the tools. Those have been there for years. He's just never dominated. He's never dominated at the college level. He's graded between 84 and 86 every year, which is good. But for a guy that has all these tools and has supposedly been this #1 overall lock for years, why hasn't he dominated on campus?
I mean, he's the equivalent of the first-round draft pick in the NFL that has a reputation for being a first-round draft pick, and no matter what they do from that point on, it's done.
You're always known as first-round draft pick.
He looked pretty good as a freshman, fantastic as a freshman in some people's eyes, but never really got any better than that. That was just who he was.
Here's the number with Rosen. 8th in the draft class in big-time throw percentage. That's really good. He can make those special NFL throws. 25th, though, in avoiding turnover-worthy plays. That's been a part of his DNA his entire career at UCLA. You'll see him just make some disastrous decisions, and I think that's where that Eli Manning, Jameis Winston comp comes from.
And even in that tape we threw on the other day, fantastic all the way through the game, right up until the horrible interception.
Oh, he was incredible until he threw the ball right to a safety.
Yeah.
All right, we have to get to these next 3 quarterbacks, and I'm going to lump Josh Allen from Wyoming, who a lot of people are saying
#1 overall lock.
he's the top guy. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I will lump them into the same bucket only because in our world, I think they're guys that have issues as passers. They're 2 of the least accurate quarterbacks when it comes to this draft class, but I think they both have trump cards that will allow for potential success at the NFL level. For Allen, it's that velocity, size, and athleticism. For Lamar, it's the athleticism.
So Josh Allen can throw the ball through a brick wall. You can throw it through a brick wall 60 yards in the air.
Maybe 90 yards through the air.
He's huge. He's a monster. He didn't have any help at Wyoming. Why do you hate him, Steve?
We all hate Josh Allen. We're just such haters. So the funny thing is, I feel like I was at the beginning of the hype train, right, Sam? I was there in 2016 saying, you got to watch this guy at Wyoming. He's playing at 11 Eastern. You got to watch him. He's got future NFL potential. And it went from future NFL potential to this dude is going 1 overall. And I thought that was a little bit too much for a guy that just is too inaccurate. So that's a big question for us. Also, just had a horrible 2017 season. So he showed the potential in 2016, 2017, far too inconsistent.
So let's sum him up quickly, okay? Josh Allen is what Christian Hackenberg truthers said Christian Hackenberg was, which is this quarterback that is a big collection of tools, but hasn't had the right situation around him. And when you put it all together, you've got a great quarterback. Now, Christian Hackenberg didn't even have that. He was just a bad player with bad tools, leaving you with nothing. Josh Allen does at least have the tools. He is essentially an IKEA quarterback, right? There is a big box of quarterback components. The only problem is that somebody has burned the instruction manual, and you're sitting there with your screwdriver, and you've got to put them all together.
And even if you find it, it's probably in Swedish. And God, I hate IKEA. Don't even bring that up. I'll sum them up in PFF terms. Number 7, highest percentage of positively graded throws. So if you want to pull out tape of Josh Allen doing NFL things, it's there. But also had the 2nd highest percentage of negatively graded throws. So if we want to pull up this playlist of him overthrowing a shallow cross by 10 yards or a swing pass by 10 yards, it's also there.
Yeah.
That inconsistency makes it an issue. With Lamar Jackson, his accuracy is probably just as bad as Allen when it comes to ball location, putting it on the front number. But he has NFL throws in his bag. He's shown that he can go through progressions and find the open man. He just doesn't do it well on a throw-for-throw basis. But he has this athleticism that I think you can tap into, get the QB running game going. He's special with the ball in his hands, and I think that opens up some easier throws and mitigates some of the accuracy issues.
So he probably doesn't have he's probably about as inaccurate as Josh Allen is, doesn't have the same arm strength to offset that, but his way of offsetting it is the athleticism, the danger he is as a running back, and what you can do with that to create those easier plays. So the problem with Lamar Jackson is there is definitely a path for him to be a successful NFL quarterback, but unlike some of these other guys, it involves the coaching staff building that around him to help him do it. He's probably not going to do it on his own if you just plug him into a conventional NFL offense. Like the Michael Vick thing. If you try and put him in the West Coast offense, it's just not what he does well. Lamar Jackson is the same kind of deal. you can't just put him in as a West Coast quarterback and say, let's go. You're going to need to build a bespoke offense around him, kind of like the Panthers have done with Cam Newton, like the Bills did briefly with Tyrod Taylor to get the best out of him. You're going to need to take advantage of the fact that he can be a running threat legitimately with the ball in his hands and use that to build RPOs off the back of them, run pass options, get you essentially free yardage, easy pass plays that make it simpler for him to complete big plays.
Or even just basic play action, where you have to account for him as a runner. They did that at Louisville. Him and Baker Mayfield, they had the highest percentage of open throws, and it feels like one of the, like Baker, that was kind of schemed up for him. With Jackson, it was because of his athleticism. I think you could do that at the next level.
The RG3 kind of offense with Washington before that went off the rails.
Exactly. A lot of the easy throws he had was because of his threat as a runner. Mason Rudolph, the other name we have to mention, could go in the first round. 3 excellent years of PFF grading, 90, 92.4, 89.1. Just an inconsistent quarterback. The ball, you talked about Rosen, the ball, nice tight spiral. Rudolph doesn't always have the ball come out of his hand the way you'd want for this big, tall quarterback, but he could throw the ball outside the numbers. He could throw it down the field. His short area accuracy is the biggest concern, especially in our accuracy numbers.
Hardest guy, I think, to nail down in terms of what he actually is as well in this draft class. The grading loves him. There are some phenomenal plays in there. His third down reel is amazing.
Number 1 graded third down thrower last year in the class.
There are so many plays that the ball just comes out of his hand funky, or the arm strength doesn't seem to be there, or there's something else bad about it. We've been up and down and all over on Mason Rudolph. What about guys that are overrated? I think we hit the biggest one. Josh Allen, the guy that could potentially go number 1 overall, and you think he's worth
late first, early second type of pick?
Yeah, it's so safe to say we think Josh Allen's a little bit overrated. Anyone else fit that category for quarterbacks?
No, I mean, I really think I would go Mayfield, Darnold, Rosen as that top 3.
Yeah.
I would be comfortable if I'm an organization and I got to, pick one of those as my franchise guys. I think there's a next tier of probably Lamar Jackson, maybe Mason Rudolph, and maybe Allen in there too. So those guys just come with more question marks, but there's a path to success for all of them.
And for every one of these position groups, we're going to do my guys. That's the fun part of
all
the
right,
draft,
who's your guy that you want to highlight in this class?
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to start off and do 2 because quarterbacks are longer than everywhere else. We had 6 as a top 6 instead of a top 5, so I'm going to sneak in 2 my guys. One, and they're completely opposite ends of the spectrum, by the way. But they played each other this past season in what I am calling the underrated bowl, which is yet to catch on, funnily enough. Chase Litton, Marshall quarterback, right? Essentially a poor man's Josh Allen, which is not a good thing given that we've just spent a couple of minutes trashing Josh Allen. But the reason that everybody likes Josh Allen is the same thing for Chase Litton. He's got a reasonable arm. His big-time throws are fantastic. There's a lot of really good high-end stuff about him. He just needs to cut down all the bad plays, which there are plenty of. But in terms of when you're getting into the mid-rounds, the low rounds, you're looking for guys that have any kind of glimmer, the ability to do this at the next level. He at least has the tools the same way Josh Allen does. I just don't know if they're going to be able to be realized, if you're going to be able to get the bad out of it.
Take a chance on it, though.
The other guy is the entire opposite end of the spectrum. What we've got here is QB Rudy. We have Dalton Sturm,
QB Rudy.
University of Texas, San Antonio? I don't even know what school he's from.
UTSA.
UTSA. Yeah. The Roadrunners. Tiny guy, like 6'2", 215, something like that. Really small. Has an okay arm. Just has something about him. The ability to make some cool plays, some fun, interesting plays. It was a play I showed you where he breaks the pocket. He's in trouble, right field, like the 35-yard line.
Looked like a receiver.
He scores from this play. He's about to get sacked 5 yards behind the scrimmage, and he turns this into a touchdown. There's just something about the way he plays the game that I like.
So do I get 2 as well?
Sure.
2 guys to highlight, though, real quick. Western Kentucky's Mike White, our top accuracy guy when receivers had a step of separation. So puts the ball right on receivers, one of the better downfield throwers in the class. And then Kyle Laletta out of Richmond, his strengths look really good, and that's throwing to the intermediate level, highest grade at the intermediate level of any quarterback in the class, but he was terrible throwing the ball down the field. So kind of a boomer bust in that downfield range.
And we don't grade FCS, where we do every single game in the FBS, including ones where they play FCS, but because we knew Laletta would be this next tier of quarterbacks, we went through and graded his entire season, and you'll find all of that in the PFF Draft Guide.
That's right. So Laletta and Mike White, my guys in this quarterback
I like
class.
it. What do we got next?
All right, let's go running backs. We'll just run through each of the positions. For running backs, everybody has Saquon Barkley as the top guy. I think we do too.
Yeah.
But I want to temper some expectations with Barkley. So I'll answer these questions for me.
He's the perfect prospect.
Is he a perfect prospect?
No.
Is he generational?
No.
Okay.
That one's harder.
But is he the top running back in the class?
Yes.
Okay. Well, why is he the top running back in the class now that we hate him?
Because he is a matchup weapon in a way none of these other guys are. His combine numbers were insane. Like, he blew the doors off the combine. His physical workout numbers were just mind-blowing. And that means that if you're a linebacker and he comes out into a pass pattern and you have to cover him, you're screwed. You can't run as fast as he can. You can't jump as high as he can. You can't move as quick as he can. You have no shot at that. So that is why he is a devastating weapon in the passing game in today's NFL, which has never been more important. Look at what Todd Gurley did last season. He became a devastating running back because of his work after the catch, and he isn't close to the same level of receiver that Saquon Barkley is.
Our analytics guys would probably be mad at us just for even discussing running backs. That's how much they hate the running game.
But we're saying it's all about the pass. So
but as long as we say it's all about the pass game, so when we're ranking these running backs, we have to rank them essentially based off what they can do in the pass game. So when you look at Barkley, the mismatch weapon, both out of the backfield and split out wide, certainly makes him the top guy. How big of a drop-off, though, is it beyond him? Because this is where, when you get to the value of positions, can he make enough of an impact to truly be a top 10 guy, or should all running backs be dropped down? And then the next tier of guys that we have, which I'll read out: Ronald Jones from USC, Rashad Penny from San Diego State, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel from Georgia, Darius Geis out of LSU. How big is that drop-off? Do you need to take Barkley in that top 10?
It's significant from Barkley to those guys in the passing game. Barkley, I just talked about, can be a matchup weapon against any team in the NFL. There are no teams in the NFL that have an athlete on defense that can match what Barkley can do. And therefore, if you get him matched up on a linebacker, on a safety, it's game over. You have a permanent mismatch in that game, which you can choose to target if you so wish. The other guys may be good receivers. Rashad Penny, I think, can be a capable receiver out of the backfield. Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Darius Geis, all those guys I think can be good receivers. None of them can do what Saquon Barkley can.
Right.
None of those guys can terrify a linebacker coming out of the backfield the way Barkley can.
All right, well, let's separate those other guys. Give me the quick words on Jones, Penny, Chubb, and this next tier of running backs and where we slot.
Well, let's just quickly identify the flaw in Saquon Barkley. The reason he's not a perfect prospect that some NFL team apparently gave him as a draft grade. Saquon Barkley struggles running between the tackles comparatively. He's a 233-pound running back that runs scared of contact. Now, scared gets you into some trouble sometimes. I don't know if he's actually scared of contact or if he just, there's a guy there, there's not a guy over here, I want to try and get over here, and that's what gets him into trouble. But all too often, there's 3 yards to be gained straight ahead between the tackles, and he reverses field and tries to find 10 and loses 3.
And this isn't just one example. This is multiple examples throughout the season where we're seeing, jam it up in there, get 3 or 4, and you're going backwards.
On plays where he is contacted at or behind the line of scrimmage, he averages less than half a yard per carry, which is 48th of 49 running backs in this draft class. One of the other guys we mentioned, Rashad Penny, leads the draft class in that category at 3.5 yards per carry. So it's a monstrous difference for a guy who at 233 pounds should be good at that. So that's a problem running between the tackles. When you get to Ronald Jones, Rashad Penny, who I just mentioned, those guys are the antithesis of that. They will get you those 3 yards, and they'll probably get you 4 and 5 as well by falling forward, by dragging, by using power, reckless running style to generate that yards after contact. They are much better between the tackle runners than Saquon Barkley is. They may not have his big threat ability, the ability to take any ball, bounce it outside and go 80 yards, and they're definitely not the receivers he is, but they're probably better down in, down out between the tackle ball carriers.
So hearing all of that, could we see some Todd Gurley type of career path for Saquon Barkley where there's a little bit of dependence on the offensive line, and if you do scheme up or have the offensive line to give him room, we could see an MVP type season like we did last year for Gurley.
Yeah.
But don't forget, Gurley is 1 year removed from averaging about 3 yards per carry and looking terrible.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where there's that little bit of disconnect. The high end for Barkley, if you give him the blocking, could be special.
And that's why, to a degree, it's a luxury pick. If you have a reasonable offensive line, he could turn that offense into something special. If your offensive line is bad, he could look terrible.
Yeah, so Barkley up at the top has some differences between him and Jones and Penny. I'll put Chubb in that
Yes.
spot too, as far as
And
being
Geis,
able to
I
jam
think-
it up there.
I think, and Geis, I think those guys, really, realistically, the next 5 or 6 guys, I think are all pretty good at that.
So we think it's about 5 or 6 deep up at the top as far as guys that have kind of separated themselves. Give me your guy in this running back class.
My guy. I'm torn. I have a few my guys as well. You want me to limit it to one this time?
Yeah, try to limit it.
I'm going to go with the one that caught my eye right at the beginning. Kalen Ballage out of Arizona State. Way back as a freshman, he looked really good running in that team. His career path is weird, though, because some weird usage patterns at Arizona State. They kept lining him up as a wildcat quarterback, wouldn't just let him carry the ball as a running back. He's had really good grades as a receiver. He's had really good grades as a ball carrier, never at the same time, and he's coming off a really crappy season. So it's tough to really pound the table for him, but he has Saquon Barkley-esque, Saquon Barkley light athleticism numbers, body size, a big guy. He has the ability to be a much better NFL player than he was a college guy.
Yeah, good size speed combination. The grades weren't so kind in the PFF guide. My guy's going to be Mark Walton, the little guy out of Miami. You wanted him as a guy too. But if you just watch the highlight reel, which isn't the way to do this whole thing, but the highlight reel is spectacular. Some of the sharp cuts reminded me a little bit of what Dion Lewis does in New England. So Walton was hurt last year, a little banged up, but when he's healthy, he feels like one of those guys that could, affect the pass game, run through the tackles a little bit, but create some big plays with that cutting ability.
Dion Lewis is a great comp for him,
Beautiful.
Especially with Dion Lewis becoming an every down back. He's not just a scat back that only plays on third downs anymore. He carried the ball between the tackles. He became an every down guy.
All right, let's move on to wide receiver. And we talked about the strengths and weaknesses of this class, and we said, look, there's no number one.
We've done 2 strengths.
Yes, we've done 2 strengths. So wide receiver is just not a first-round strength. There's no guy that we're just saying that's just screaming round 1 here, and that's not just us. That's a lot of different analysts saying the same thing. I do think we have a group of 5 guys, though, that is difficult to sort out, though. It's Calvin Ridley from Alabama, James Washington from Oklahoma State. We might be a little higher on him than most. Cortland Sutton from SMU, DJ Moore from Maryland, and then one of our guys at PFF, Michael Gallup at Colorado State, who doesn't do anything spectacular, but top-graded receiver last year and just very efficient. Out of that group of 5, is there a guy that you like better than others? Because we debate this internally all the time.
Yeah, there's 2 guys from that group I think that stand out a little bit more to me. One of them is Calvin Ridley because he's the best route runner in this class. I don't
Explosive straight line guy.
Explosive straight line guy, knows really well how to set up defensive backs. Whether it's against man or in zone coverage, he's just got an intuitive understanding of how to get open that these other guys don't have. I showed you a play where he basically manufactured his own pick. It wasn't a design
just
pick
ran
play.
his guy into the defender.
But he kept his guy vertical right up until the point he was going to run into another corner, then cut the break in. That is really high-level stuff you don't tend to see from corners, but he has the same kind of feel for zone play as well. So I really like what he can do. I don't care that he's old. He's, 23 years old now?
38, I think.
38, 23.
Yeah, 23, yeah.
Same age as Cooper Kupp was a year ago. And Cooper Kupp, for very similar reasons, was the best rookie receiver. So I like Calvin Ridley as the best. James Washington is the other guy that I really like. I don't see too many flaws in his game. Again, so much of that is trying to identify how much the offense in Oklahoma State and the Big 12 optional defense stuff dictates how much you want to ding James Washington, but his play is fantastic. He has so many ways of winning deep.
Some wide open plays in the Big 12.
But there's some that aren't.
So I like what he did at the Senior Bowl, though.
Yeah.
Because he went against press coverage, against off coverage, accelerates out of his breaks. We grade every single snap at the Senior Bowl. That's all in the draft guide as well, which you can't find anywhere else. Washington was the top-graded receiver. He dominated, so I like that. Cortland Sutton from SMU, we were watching his film recently. I love so much of what he does. He's 6'3", 215. And when I'm scouting these 6'3 guys, most of the time it's like, doesn't really get in and out of his breaks all that well, and just a red zone threat, just a possession guy. But he goes and runs a 6.57 3-cone, really shifty in and out of his breaks, really good after the catch, and he's got this big frame. I really like Cortland Sutton.
Which, for anybody that doesn't know, a 6.57 3-cone is freaky fast.
Oh, yeah,
Like, that's
absolutely.
not just fast for a big guy, You, I'm sure, got a lot of this throughout your athletic career. Moves
6'5"
pretty well.
sevens?
No, moves pretty well for a big guy.
Yeah, there's always that caveat there,
Yeah.
like for a big guy, but Sutton moves well for anybody.
For a guy who's not very athletic, you move pretty well.
Hey.
Cortland Sutton, though, that number is insane for anybody.
Right.
Like, that's a mind-blowing number. He strikes me as a guy that is going to frustrate me throughout his NFL career because The athleticism, the movement skills are phenomenal. He does so many things well, just not very often. Like you see so many plays. There was a one-handed catch in his highlight reel where running across the field, the ball's coming in, just elevates and plucks it out of the sky. Incredible. He's probably the only guy in this draft class can make that play. But there are so many plays where you think, why didn't you catch that? You're a foot larger than the DB trying to stop you, and somehow he was able to break up a jump ball. He strikes me as a guy with amazing potential. I just don't know if he's ever going to realize it.
So beyond Sutton, we've got a guy like DJ Moore, about 6 feet tall, but just crazy quickness. Love how he catches the ball and just zooms right up the field. He's very good after the catch. And we mentioned Gallup. Again, doesn't do anything special, but he just has some subtleties to his route running that I think allows him to get open and just make catches that some other guys don't.
So he's a little bit like Ridley in terms of just understanding how to get open, how to beat guys in ways some of these other guys can't do. He also has that ability to just intuitively feel how to play a ball in the air, understand how to adjust to it. Not even, the big adjustment everyone thinks of having to come back or win a jump ball. I'm talking about running deep, understanding that this ball is coming in over the wrong shoulder, just being able to track it, shift your eyes, and go with that ball. He does that extremely well. I think he's a much better player than most people are giving him credit for.
When we look at guys that are potentially overrated in this class, because again, receiver, there's just a million different guys to choose from, and there's a million different guys that can be number one on various boards. We're seeing guys like DJ Chark.
That's the one.
Out of LSU that, we like him. He's a 4.34 guy and it shows up on the field, but is he a number one receiver?
No, he's not a number one receiver. He's not a first round receiver. Anybody claiming he is the best receiver in this class is crazy. DJ Chark runs extremely fast, but I have never seen a receiver less able to set up a defensive back than he is. He has no clue how to do it. If the DB is not in his way, he will run past him and he'll probably score on that play, right? If the DB happens to be in his way, he has no earthly idea how to move him from that spot to be able to occupy a space other than the one he wants to be in. That's a problem at the NFL level.
So you're saying being a deep threat is more than just running fast in a straight line?
Yes.
Okay, so DJ Chark, a little overrated. Give me your guy or two or however many you want to give me. It's a deep wide receiver class.
It is. I like Cedric Wilson, wide receiver out of Boise State. He caught my eye at the Senior Bowl, which is one of the first things I came to in this draft process. So basically everybody I like flashed at the Senior Bowl at some point or other.
Way to do that the right way.
He looked really good at the Senior Bowl. But then when I went back and watched this tape, again, there's a lot of really nice stuff at Boise. He's, again, another guy that plays the deep ball extremely well, can win deep in a variety of different ways, wins jump balls, contested catches, can just simply outrun a guy. I like him a lot.
Can play in the slot, maybe outside as well. So I do like Wilson there. Two quick guys for me to mention. Anthony Miller out of Memphis.
What are you doing to me?
I can do two.
Okay.
Under 6 feet tall, but plays bigger than his size. One of those guys that has really good body control around the sideline, in the end zone.
Poor man's Odell Beckham Jr.
I was saying poor man's Sterling Shepard, but there's a lot of numbers that show him being similar to Odell. The other guy is Traquan Smith out of UCF, number 2 in the nation last year, deep pass percentage. Caught over 70% of his deep passes, so he shows really good body control down the field as well.
How much of that was the freaky small UCF QB who happens to be amazing?
175-pound Mackenzie Milton, who's just incredible. We're going to be here a year from now telling you why
banging the table
a
for a guy
5'10", 175-pounder needs to be the NFL
banging the table for a guy with my body type at quarterback.
Go and watch his tape. It is phenomenal. So that's your wide receiver class. It's like 10,000 twos when all you need is a 1. Tight end, let's go there. It's a little bit deeper class. I really like Dallas Goedert, South Dakota State, up at the top end. I think he's the only guy we have as a first-round pick. But second, third round, there's a few other names. The one consistent theme with these tight ends, none of them can block. No. I don't even know if I care that much. But
nobody cares.
None of them can.
Nobody cares.
As long as the NFL doesn't put these guys old school, in line, go beat up some defensive ends, they should be fine. But Dallas Goedert, absolute mismatch weapon, 6'5", 255, moves like a wide receiver. The best part is watching South Dakota State play, and they use him like a wide receiver. They're giving him shovel passes. They're giving him screens. Then they're using him in the red zone as a mismatch option. There's so many teams that I think he fits really well with in the back end of the first.
And he's he's one of these guys that is the perfect 2018 player. You know, there's a few positions and a few players we're going to talk about who 10 years ago, they would not be the same kind of caliber prospect, but right now, for 2018, for the way the game is right now, the perfect player. The two guys that I've seen a lot of people comping Dallas Goedert to, Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz, who are two of the best receiving tight ends in the league. None of them are Gronk, but they're in that next group right there, and I think he compares favorably to both those guys. We drew up some numbers for our Sports Illustrated show that basically compare his drop rate, his yards after the catch rate, and his broken tackle percentage with Travis Kelce, and he's right in lockstep with him.
Very similar, yeah. So I think, Goddard, I think, is the top guy at tight ends. The next tier of guys, though, you've got a guy like Mark Andrews out of Oklahoma, who did not test well, but does show up athletically on the field, basically a glorified slot receiver at Oklahoma. And then Mike Gesicki from Penn State, who broke the combine, had one of the best workouts of all time, with a big, long frame, all sorts of athleticism. Wasn't really featured in the Penn State offense, but man, there were times where he's one-on-one outside. He had the highest contested catch percentage in the entire class when it comes to tight ends. So you're talking about a guy that can beat the little corners, the little safeties, outrun linebackers. That's another mismatch guy at the next level.
Definitely. I think it's an interesting tight end group. Like you say, they are all various forms of glorified wide receiver, which is fine because that's what the position is in today's NFL.
Do you have any other guys to highlight in this class?
I really don't. I have no guys, this tight end class.
You just like the top end guys?
I don't love any of them. The guys that I love are Goddard, Gesicki. I don't have a guy I want to bang the table for.
That's perfectly fine, but I'm going to go Hayden Hurst out of South Carolina because he's a former pitcher. And we all know the former pitchers are the best athletes.
Wrap it up.
And he can get out there, and he's just fierce after the catch. I just love it. Hayden Hurst, South Carolina, another guy that can't really block a whole lot.
You're not allowed to talk about former baseball players anymore.
So it's an okay tight end class. Former baseball players, the smartest and the best athletes.
Oh, God. Quick. Next
Go get
position.
yourself a tight end. All right, let's go offensive line. Can we lump them all in together?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's start essentially talking about tackles, though. Like we said last year, Ryan Ramczyk was our first-round tackle. There was a lot of talk about, Garrett Bowles went in the first round as well, and Cam Robinson was a potential first-round tackle. We didn't really love them. The fact that this year we have Mike McGlinchey out of Notre Dame and Connor Williams out of Texas, I guess immediately makes this tackle class a little bit better, at least at the top end.
Yeah, and I think from watching his tape the other day, I would put Jamarco Jones in that conversation as well. Not quite up with those two, but I think he's a guy that could easily sneak into the bottom of the first round, whereas a few weeks ago, a lot of people had Orlando Brown maybe in that group. His workout, if Mike Gesicki broke the combine, Orlando Brown did too, but in a completely different way.
The opposite end of the spectrum.
He damaged the combine possibly irreparably with one of the worst workouts we've ever seen.
He improved it a little bit at Pro Day, but it was still to the point where it's like we already had the scouting report that said might not be able to handle speed off the edge, and then you saw him not being able to move.
He improved from catastrophic to just outright bad.
Yes.
So either way, it took a torpedo to his draft stock, and we went from a guy who may have been a first-round pick to somebody who probably shouldn't be. But I think Jamarco Jones might be replacing him on that list.
No, that's okay. Jamarco Jones, Ohio State, pretty solid pass protector. Compared to some of the other developmental tackle prospects, you might have a guy. Let's just jump right to overrated because I want to talk about him as a mid-round guy, and we're hearing first-round hype on Colton Miller out of UCLA. We're hearing, maybe the Patriots are going to try to, fill that Nate Solder role, and maybe he goes in and Dante Scarnecchia works his magic with him. But Colton Miller is a guy. We were watching him and saying, man, there's some good stuff here, but there are too many ugly losses to put him in the first round.
Well, the other point I was making is that for a guy in like the 99th percentile of athleticism for a tackle, he doesn't actually move that well. So
right, because combine-wise, he supposedly was a combine winner, but it just doesn't show up on film.
Yeah, you look at the tape and he doesn't move like a fluid, fantastic athlete, with the exception of a few specific play types, the front side of outside zone. He runs pretty well in a straight line to cut off guys. So there's a few times where it does, but there's a lot of times where he's beaten for sheer quickness, athleticism, and fluidity, which shouldn't be happening if you're in the 99th percentile for athletic skills.
But the bigger issue is his hands, and there's a lot of guys who, when they lose, you kind of lose. Like you still, have the man. You could kind of recover a little bit. He will get his hands completely swiped far too often. No chance of recovery, and those are those ugly plays on film.
I thought for a horrifying minute you were about to tell me that his hands were just too small to play tackle at the next level. We were going to have some words if that was the case.
We have not gotten to hand-size offensive line.
I agree.
Analysis.
His hands are terrible sometimes. It's like he doesn't use them. When I graded Super Bowl I back in the day, you weren't allowed
Not
legally.
live. This was
No. Like
recently
went back and
on,
re-rated.
Okay.
But it was a rule, an NFL rule at the time, that you couldn't grab a guy. You couldn't extend your hands. You essentially had to block with your elbows. So all the pass protection plays with the offensive lineman dropping back and trying to catch a guy in their elbows.
Colton's not that bad.
There are reps on tape where it looks like Colton Miller is trying to block with 1960s rules. That's all I'm saying.
So one other tackle to keep an eye on, Brian O'Neill out of Pittsburgh, moves extremely well. He's got some technical issues as well, but one of those mid-round developmental guys.
Can I give you two more overrated guys for offensive linemen?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Different positions. Billy Price and James Daniels, guys who, the center position is interesting because there's three guys that are being talked about as those first-round potential hype guys. Those two, Billy Price and James Daniels, and Arkansas's Frank Ragnow. For us, again, it's like the Baker Mayfield thing. Frank Ragnow, everybody else. The idea that those are in any way comparable is insane. We'll talk about the other guys at the top of this list. We talked about the tackles a bit, but at guard, you've got Quentin Nelson, who is one of the top 5 players in this entire draft. He is so good that he unifies PFF and offensive line guys, the guys that like the finishing. I mean, Quentin Nelson.
So they're the guys that are like, PFF, you guys don't know the play call, and you don't know how to evaluate offensive linemen, and we love when they bury a guy in the dirt 12 seconds after the play. They love that. And Quentin Nelson is so good that we like them, and O-line Twitter likes
Quentin
them.
Nelson is good at being nasty. He's good at burying guys into the ground. He's good at all the stuff that doesn't matter but gets you a lot of style points with O-line Twitter. He's also good at the stuff that does matter and blocks guys out of the play before the running back arrives at the hole, which is why we love him. So Quentin Nelson is like, he's as close as you can get to a can't-miss prospect without being a can't-miss prospect because those don't exist.
Yeah, so Nelson's pretty awesome. Mauling run blocker, moves extremely well, and can get guys on the move, and improved in pass protection over the last few years. A couple other potential first-round guys. So you mentioned Frank Ragnow. He could play center. He could play guard, our top-graded center for 2 straight years. But also Isaiah Wynn, who played left tackle in college. He's only 6'2". He'll probably move to guard at the next level. He's an outstanding prospect. And then Will Hernandez, who was our top-graded guard in 2016, and number 2, another Senior Bowl stud, number 2 in 2017. He's another first-round player out of UTEP. So we're talking about this interior offensive line class that's looking pretty good.
Yeah, and Ragnow is the guy I think that I want to highlight of that group because he has Quentin Nelson, Baker Mayfield kind of grades. When you look at how far ahead of the field he was in the PFF grading, it's phenomenal. He allowed 3 total pressures this entire last season. Okay, he missed some time injured, but only one of those came at center. He moonlighted a guard, gave up a couple of hurries there, but he can play center, he can play guard. His grading has been phenomenal. It doesn't always look as pretty on tape as a guy like Quentin Nelson, but it works as often as it does for Quentin Nelson. He should be the head and shoulders best center in this class.
Is Ragnow your guy on the O-line class?
No, I have another guy that I want to talk about unless you steal him. So you go first, and if you do steal him, then it's Ragnow.
I know where you're going, so I'm going to take someone else. I'm just going to highlight Wyatt Teller out of Virginia Tech, who does bring the nasty at guard and has 4 years of strong PFF grading, all a part of the draft guide.
4 years of bringing the nasty?
Of bringing the nasty. In the run game, over 80 every single year. Wyatt Teller feels like one of those guys you're going to get 3rd or 4th round, and you're going to have a starter on your hands.
I'm going to go with Nevada's Austin Corbett.
I saved him for you.
You did, yeah. A guy that played tackle for Nevada, but somewhere projects inside at the next level. He's going to be a guard. He's going to be a center. I like him best at center. Another Senior Bowl guy. Played all over the line at the Senior Bowl. Had the best rep I saw of anybody at the Senior Bowl, where he took Poona Ford, defensive tackle from Texas, tossed him to the floor. Just smushed him in a way that nobody else does. I think he could step in and be a really good, really high potential center pretty early.
We call him a 5-position guy.
Who do we?
We could play all 5 positions. If I see you tweeting next year about how overrated the Senior Bowl is and why would you use this 1 week to evaluate, I'll just know you're a hypocrite.
I love the Senior Bowl. It's never going to happen.
All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. We mentioned earlier in the show as far as edge defenders go, it's not great. No. It is not a great class. So let's jump right into, we have 2 first-round grades, and everybody's talking about Bradley Chubb. We'll talk about him in a minute.
And he's one of them.
He is one of them. We do have a first-round grade on him. We also have a first-round grade on Harold Landry out of Boston College. Coming into the season, this was like a no-brainer. Harold Landry was coming off of the top pass-rushing grade out of anybody in the class in 2016. Chubb was one of those guys who looked like a future first-rounder, but he's good against the run, and he's an okay pass rusher. Chubb did improve, but he's still not this slam dunk elite pass rusher. So if we're talking overrated, I'm going to jump right into it. Chubb is not a slam dunk top 5 pick. He's a good player. He's not a great player. He's not Myles Garrett. He's not Joey Bosa. He's being discussed as such. And right now we have Harold Landry above Chubb only because the run game's important, but man, pass rushing and doing it at an elite level is just far too valuable. And we see Landry's pass rushing just a little bit above Chubb at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Landry, in a draft class where there aren't that many elite, talented edge rushers, guys that have all those scouting terms that we look for, you know, the ability to bend the edge, the burst off the line of scrimmage, those dynamic edge rushing skills, Landry might really be the only guy that can do that consistently and has done it consistently at the college level. Actual line from an NFL scouting report on Harold Landry: if you don't like all pros, don't draft him.
Ooh, how about that?
That's why we have him at the top.
That's why he's a top 10 player for us. We agree with that one particular scouting report. So beyond Landry and Chubb, there's also a lot of hype for Marcus Davenport. I guess in our world we have to call him overrated just because we have him a little bit lower than the top 10 or 15 where he's being projected. But you know, Davenport is one of those guys that we kind of unlocked with our grades the last couple of years. He looked really good on film, really improved last year, was number 4 in the class in pass rush productivity, 6'6", 260 plus pounds, and he moves extremely well. The problem with him is just, you know, he's not really refined. He doesn't have a whole slew of pass rush moves, but he could push the pocket and has some of those, you know, big flash plays on film.
Yeah, I think some of his dominant plays in college were insane. A lot of that was because he's playing at a slightly lower level than some of these guys. So one of those dominant plays, for example, is running the hell right over a guy that was 5'6" and listed at 200 pounds. So let's say that's probably lighter than that.
Is that your boy, though, that he ran over?
A little bit, yeah.
Boston Scott?
I do like Boston Scott.
Running back from Louisiana Tech?
Poor Boston was outgunned on this play and just got run over by Marcus Davenport. So some of the splash plays are fantastic, but you have to bear in mind who he's doing it against. And there is going to be that question mark about whether he can translate that to the next level. I think, ironically, the Senior Bowl probably helped him because as much as he struggled early in the week, it took him a while to adjust to the increased level of competition. By the end of it, he was fantastic. And even late in the drills, he looked really good, had a good game at the Senior Bowl. So I think the pathway there is there for NFL teams to say, okay, early we may struggle with this guy. It may not be an immediate translation, but we've seen already that when you increase the level of competition he goes against, it's going to take him a while to feel comfortable. Then we'll start to see what he can do.
That's actually very reminiscent of Ziggy Ansah, who at the Senior Bowl struggled, 2 sacks on Saturday during the game. So maybe there's a parallel there with Davenport. So we'll call him a fringe first-round player in our world. Beyond that, it's just question marks galore with this edge defender class. We have guys like Arden Key out of LSU, who at one point was supposed to be right there with Harold Landry. You know, 1 and 2, both of them had really good years, 2015 and 16. But Key weighs in at under 240 pounds, tons of off-field questions, quit the LSU team last spring, other issues off the field. He might just be too undersized to do anything at the next level.
I mean, he's a terrifying prospect in terms of all of the red flags. So many red flags, but it's such a bad edge rushing class, such a bad pass rushing class generally, that I think we're going to see him get pushed up because there just aren't other options out there.
So beyond that, you've got guys like Obo Okoronkwo from Oklahoma. He's dealing with, you know, height issues and size issues. Hercules Mataafa played on the interior at Washington State. He's transferring to edge where he has to play a completely different game. Kamoko Ture out of Rutgers has all the tools and the bendiness and all the stuff you're looking for, but there's so much inconsistency on the field, and he barely played 1,000 snaps in 4 years at Rutgers. So a lot of question marks in this class. The 2 other guys I want to highlight in that potentially overrated group is Lorenzo Carter out of Georgia and Josh Sweat out of Florida State. Both guys who look really good physically. Lorenzo Carter, has all the tools. I mean, he's, the sculpted, perfect-looking edge rusher, but he really never produced at Georgia. Had 25% of his pressures against Notre Dame alone last year, and just never had that game-to-game production.
Yeah, those are concerns. Those are 2 guys, though, that a lot of people have high on their board, so I think you're right to highlight them as potential overrated guys.
Do you have any other guys in this class, or is it all just the top-end guys?
No, I've got some guys. I got one guy in particular.
Who's your guy?
That I founded the bandwagon on, and now the bandwagon is a little bit out of control, and I'm thinking about jumping off. Shaquem Griffin, UCF, linebacker, edge rusher.
We're supposed to talk about him during linebacker groups.
No, because he's an edge rusher. He's 220 pounds, and he's an edge rusher, which is the biggest problem I have with him. Not the fact that he's missing his left hand, which is the thing that's getting him notoriety, really,
Right.
is that he has this incredible story of a guy who was born with a birth defect on his left hand, had it amputated when he was 4 years old, has played his entire football career without his left hand, and was incredibly productive. And the thing that's scary about him, though, is that he has been a phenomenally productive edge rusher. Look at his game against Auburn this past season. Destroyed Auburn, who have some legitimate pass blockers, and he just cut them to ribbons. He is a guy that generated pressure at a greater rate than Hassan Reddick last year, a guy who's kind of comparable in terms of an edge rusher who projected to linebacker because of size issues, actually generated pressure at the same rate in his college career as Myles Garrett did. So incredibly productive player, but I have no earthly idea what to do with a 220-pound edge rusher.
Yeah, a lot of questions, I think, with Griffin and how you use him. Potentially just a movable chess piece if you can use him the right way. My guy's going to be Duke Ejiofor coming out of Wake Forest. He's got 3 years of strong production, grading at 82 or better in the PFF system. And he's one of those guys, he's 6'4", 275, who just uses his hands extremely well, technically sound, and just looks like he's set up. He has all the tools to just have a very solid NFL career. So it's not a great edge defender class. I want to move on to defensive interior. Also not a great class there.
We just spent 5 minutes talking about Maurice Hurst.
Yes, we'll just spend the whole time. It's Maurice Hurst and then everyone else when it comes to defensive interior. He only weighs 290, Sam. He's undersized. It's too small for the next level. Now, his production has just been off the charts, and 290 is not undersized in today's NFL. It actually helps with pad level and all this stuff. He's a potentially dominant player.
The best two interior defensive tackles / ends now with 3-4 schemes in this league are Aaron Donald and Geno Atkins. Both of those guys were labeled as undersized defensive tackles, 3 technique players coming in. That's who Maurice Hurst compares to.
But it's not just those two. It's not like, well, there's Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, and then there's no other short quarterbacks. There's also a Mike Daniels. There's also Grady Jarrett.
Yeah.
There are multiple guys across the league.
I'm just pointing out the best two.
No, the very best, right?
Are
I
the
get
smaller
it.
guys.
So Maurice Hurst, when you look at his production, 2015 and 16, he was in more of a rotational role at Michigan and played essentially like 2 half seasons when it comes to all the rotation. And when you combine that into one season, it looked like one incredible season of production. And then last year he got to play a full season, and he had one incredible season of production, essentially put together the highest grade that we've given in one season for a defensive interior player, and just the most dominant 3-year stretch that we've seen. So we're talking, this really good track record of creating havoc as a pass rusher and in the run game.
I would say there are 3 players in this draft who have redefined the PFF grading in terms of their position. You have Baker Mayfield, you have Frank Ragnow, and you have Maurice Hurst. And what we've started to discover from looking at our data and how it translates to the NFL, it's the guys that break the scale at the top end that have the best chance of translating immediately to the NFL level. The last guy maybe to do it so smoothly was Joey Bosa, who again, people were questioning coming up to the draft. They were picking holes in his game. Has he maxed out? Does he really have any room to get better? Well, the answer was maybe not, but did he need to? No,
Right, he was already
just stepped
good
on the
enough
field
the
and
entire
dominated.
time.
I think that's the same thing with Hurst. You look at his tape, and I don't care if he can get any better. He's already destroying people every single down. He's going to step on the field and be pretty dominant.
So when you look at a guy like Maurice Hurst, a 290-pound 3 technique, 10 years ago in the NFL, or a little bit before that in the NFL, it used to be, well, does he fit the scheme? And right now, the answer is yes. He fits every single scheme.
Everybody needs a 3-tech.
Everybody needs a 3 technique. There's no such thing as a team that doesn't need an interior pass rusher. You're going to be in nickel and dime situations, 65, 70% of the time anyway. So he's a fit everywhere. We have him as a top 5 player in this draft. And then the drop-off is steep because, the resounding theme here as we dig into the data more and more is that just how important the pass game is and rushing the quarterback and, stopping the run is nice. It's a valuable piece, but it can't be the only thing that you do. And when I look down our list of interior defensive linemen, there's just not a ton of them that we really trust to rush the passer like Maurice Hurst.
Yeah, the big question, the other sort of first-round guy that, again, everybody else has probably a little bit higher than us, is Vita Vea, the big nose tackle from Washington.
340-plus pounds.
Big man. The question with him is going to be, can he be more than just a run stuffer, which was the question with Danny Shelton. Again, the player that he kind of comes along shortly after, same question. Danny Shelton has really only been a run stuffing nose tackle at the next level. And in a league that is passing 60+% of the time, where nickel is the new base, that just isn't that valuable. You become a 2-down player, which is not worth the first-round pick. Now, Vita Vea had more success rushing the passer than Danny Shelton did in the same defense, has got significantly more pressure over his time in college than Shelton did. So there's at least suggestions that he can do more than that, but that is what's going to determine his value.
Yeah, so he had pass rush grades of 81.9 and then 88 these last 2 years, which is great. My question with Vea is actually how he created those pressures. He can push the pocket as well as anybody, but can he create that bull rush pressure at the next level? Outstanding run defender, can make plays up and down the line of scrimmage, and I think he can push the pocket a little bit, but there's some risk in there. But at worst, he's one of those guys, at worst, I think you're getting a good run defender, and you play that risk-reward game with a guy like him in the first round.
At worst, he probably becomes what Danny Shelton has been, and Danny Shelton just got moved for a box of chocolates.
He's better than Danny Shelton, though. He's graded better than Danny Shelton. He's better than Danny Shelton across the board.
I'm just saying, when you say that's a pretty high floor, it's not valuable.
Well, a box of chocolates is very valuable, so I don't know what kind of point you're trying to make there. So Vita Vea is the only other guy we have in the first round. Let me jump to overrated, because we're hearing a guy like Daron Payne from Alabama potentially going in the first round. We have one real dominant game from him on tape, and that was the playoff game against Georgia. Other than that, he's been like a lot of the traditional Alabama players who stop the run really well and come with question marks rushing the passer. And previous Bama guys like A'Shawn Robinson, Jaron Reed, haven't really rushed the passer at the NFL level.
I got one more overrated for you.
Oh, you do?
Stanford nose tackle, Harrison Phillips. I do not understand the hype surrounding this guy. People are saying he's a second-round pick. Some people are sneaking him into the first round. I don't understand why, because again, he's a run defender who doesn't bring anything as a pass rusher. And I don't even know if he has the size, the bulk to play nose tackle at the next level, at which point you have a 3-4 end, a guy that plays 3-tech, but only against the run. There's no value in that. What you've got is like Mike DeVito from a few years ago, who we fought hard and long to try and convince people he was a good player, but all he did was a 2-down run stuff.
He was against the run. So
and the league has gone more towards passing since that point. So right. I don't understand why anybody is talking about this guy higher than the 4th or 5th round.
Phillips was number 1 in the draft class in run stop percentage, to your point, but also 53rd in pass rush productivity. So that does bring...
In the Pac-12.
In the Pac-12, that does bring a big question mark to the table. A guy that we like but maybe don't love is Taven Bryan out of Florida. Really a nice breakout season for him, former 3-star recruit. He's probably that next guy when it comes to interior penetrators behind Maurice Hurst, but we see a big drop-off from Hurst to Taven Bryan, the next guy maybe being R.J. McIntosh out of Miami. So do you have a guy in this class among the defensive interior players? Because it doesn't look great as far as depth goes.
It's not. And again, there aren't those players that can rush the passer. I like Kayvon Perry, relatively small school, not a guy that's going to make waves in terms of the conference or the school he's coming from, but he has some impressive run defense. I think there's some pass rush ability in there as well. He wins a lot with quickness. He wins with his hands, with some power off the snap. I think that can translate to a guy that can be more than just a 2-down run stuffer.
I'm going to highlight a 2-down run stuffer in Trenton Thompson from Georgia, former top recruit, more of a mid-round guy, but that's where you want to get your run stuffers, and I think he could develop to do even more at the next level.
Kayvon Perry, by the way, Louisiana Raging Cajuns.
Yeah, he had
in case you were looking for the school.
A really nice season last year. All right, let's move to linebacker, and this is a place where you talk about devalued positions in the NFL, and I don't think linebacker has been devalued. I think the 2-down run stuffer has been devalued. But when you have a Luke Kuechly, a Deion Jones, a guy that can play all 3 downs, cover running backs, cover tight ends, play zone, extremely valuable. The best linebackers, extremely valuable in the NFL. We see 3 guys as potential first-round picks, starting with your boy Roquan Smith out of Georgia.
So we talked before about Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, hitting the league at a time where they have never been. They're a perfect player for the 2018 NFL. Roquan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia, is the perfect linebacker for the 2018 NFL. This guy his coverage. Coverage is the thing that he does better than anybody else in this class. He has the speed. He's got the feel for how to do it. There are plays in his tape where he tracks a slot receiver from the other side of the field, turns, runs with the guy, and makes a pass breakup in the back of the end zone to stop what would have been a touchdown. There aren't players in this draft that can do that. He's undersized, relatively speaking.
Right.
Again, if you're looking at 2007, you're looking at the same guy, you would say, this guy's 20 pounds too light, he can't take on fullbacks in the hole, we can't draft him high. Now nobody plays with a fullback. They've died out. They're extinct. Fullbacks don't exist. It's slot receivers, it's tight end weapons that can't block. His relative deficiencies in being able to take on blocks head up just don't matter as much as they did. He's got sideline to sideline speed. He can avoid blocks at the second level, and his coverage skills are what separate him at the top of this class and make him a fantastic first-round prospect.
Love the way he plays zone, gets that good depth, closes extremely quickly on the underneath stuff. So I think Roquan's certainly the head of the class. The other guy that's getting hype, I guess we have to throw him into the overrated group. And I hate doing this, Sam. When we have to call a guy overrated that we like, we have a first-round grade on Tremaine Edmunds from Virginia Tech. He's one of the most fun prospects to watch in the entire class. But when you're hearing about him going over Roquan Smith or him being a top 10 lock, then we have a little bit of pause because we have some questions about his game.
So the way I think that's best to describe Tremaine Edmunds is that people are in love more with the idea of what Tremaine Edmunds can be than the player he actually is. He's 6'5", he's 250 pounds, he's 19 years old, which is freaky. His potential, this idea of what he can become, is phenomenal. You have ideas of this, incredible bionic linebacker that just destroys the league because nobody else can match him physically. But he would need to realize 90%, 95% of that potential to be as good as Roquan Smith, who's already there. Tremaine Edmunds does a lot of things well, and we have him as a first-round pick. There's a lot to like, and the potential is there for him to get better because he's only 19, but he doesn't play in coverage as well as a guy like Roquan Smith. There are a lot of plays in his tape where he doesn't pick the right gap, hits a wrong gap, allows a big play through the middle, and those are significant plays. It's an easy mental mistake to make, but if you blow a gap and a running back has an empty hole, that can be 80 yards, depending on what's happening in the back seven. There's a lot of those plays on his tape. They did improve as the season wore on. There were a lot of them early. Then he got a little bit better. And again, that speaks to the youth. But I don't see how you put him above a guy like Roquan Smith, even above a guy like Leighton Vander Esch, who it turns out is every bit as athletic and as big as Tremaine Edmunds, just isn't 19 years old.
Yeah, so he's our other first-round prospect, Vander Esch. We have him ahead of Edmunds. Led the entire draft class, led the nation in stops. Those are those tackles, essentially for an offensive loss, close to the line of scrimmage. Does it in the pass game, does it in the run game, sheds blocks extremely well. The question for him, only 1 year of production, but it was really good, and he has the size and the movement skills and all that stuff to be a three-down guy.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about 1 year of production, you have to look at why it was only one year of production. And if you just didn't get the opportunity until that year, I'm okay with it. There's nothing you could do about that. There was guys in front of you on the depth chart.
Couldn't beat them out.
For whatever reason, the coaching gave the hierarchy to the guys who were already there, the guys with tenure. The guys with tenure got the starting spot. You had to bide your time, wait for your opportunity, and as soon as you did, you became a star. I don't have a problem with that.
So another guy that we're probably going to throw in the overrated bucket, Rashaan Evans out of Alabama, only because a lot of people are calling him a lock first rounder. We have him more as an early to mid second rounder. Some question marks to his game.
Well, his question mark is, we talked about how important coverage is. It's the single most important thing linebackers do anymore, and I don't know if he can play on third downs in coverage. He's never done it that much. He hasn't been great at it when he's done it. He started off his career at Alabama as a pure edge rusher, as a pass rusher. And that's by far the thing that he's best at in terms of passing downs right now. Maybe his ceiling is to use him as a run-stuffing linebacker, and on passing downs, use him the way New England used Jamie Collins or Dante Hightower, and use him on the blitz. Have him he destroys running backs, but he's good enough to be able to beat offensive linemen as well. Maybe that's the way you get him on the field in third down. Hide him just enough in coverage to be able to keep him playing.
That's what I'm saying. So I hate calling Evans overrated because I do think that there's a way to use him to maximize his skill set. But when you're talking about him versus Vander Esch and even Edmunds, guys that have more range and coverage and a little bit more athleticism that's shown up on film, there are some question marks there. Couple later linebackers. Do you have a guy? I don't want to steal your guy here either. Because
you're not going to steal my guy. I've got enough guys. Go. Who do you want to go?
I want to mention Sky Moore.
Do it.
Okay. So Sky Moore almost looks like a safety out there covering, has great range, has a good feel for zone coverage. That's what I'm all about, man. Playing zone in the middle linebacker zone at the next level, being able to take the crossing route behind you and close on the underneath stuff.
Uncoverable.
Such a good feel. He has a good feel for that
Yeah.
for that route behind him. Picked off a couple passes doing that last year. 2 coverage grades above 88. Unfortunately, he had a 2016 season that he completely missed due to injury. So that's your question mark there. But Moore is a pure coverage linebacker.
And quality seasons in the SEC.
In the SEC.
In the SEC.
Which Sam is coming around to knowing is just, the one way to make it look more valuable.
My concerns with him is it didn't always look fluid and athletic on tape, and because he's an undersized player, I thought if he tested poorly at the combine, there were going to be concerns. He went to the combine, tested fantastically, the measurables were there, at which point you've got to say quality production in the SEC. Turns out he's athletic enough to get it done. He's probably going to translate. The guy that I want to highlight, Al-Rashid Benton, linebacker out of West Virginia, didn't have the best season in 2017, but missed 26 tackles, and that accounts for almost all of his downswing in
Is that a
grading.
positive?
No. But I don't think it's a permanent problem.
Oh, okay.
It was only 1 year of just an incredible number of missed tackles. The season before, only missed 6, I think, or 9 tackles, something like that, a fraction of 26 anyway. Had a much better grade, was a clear leader on that defense, and we've seen in the NFL, missed tackles are not that big a problem for linebackers. It's not a good play, but the guys at the top of the list of the missed tackle numbers in the NFL, they're Quan Alexander. They're all these guys that everybody loves as linebackers. They do miss a lot of tackles.
You're getting sucked in by the masses right now.
I'm just saying, worst case scenario, he misses 26 again in 2018, and it's still not a huge problem if he plays well the rest of the time.
But he's around the ball, right?
Best case scenario, he cuts that down, and you get the player you got in 2016 again, and you've got a star.
The part you like is the way he flies around the field in the run game, especially, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's where he does stand out as a potentially good player. I like the linebacker class. There are
Yes.
some middle round run stoppers to get. There's other coverage guys like a Dorian O'Daniel to go out and grab. Maybe a Jerome Baker out of Ohio State has the athleticism that the NFL is looking for. So liking this linebacker class. Let's move on to, do you want to lump the defensive backs
DBs,
in?
yeah.
All right, all defensive backs. The cornerback class, again, last year I was saying you can go into the 4th round and get starters. This year it's not going to be as deep, but we see 3 guys in the 1st round. Josh Jackson out of Iowa. I think we're higher on him than most. Minka Fitzpatrick out of Alabama. Denzel Ward out of Ohio State, where right now we have him as our number 3 guy, but I have no problem if we put him at number 1. I love Denzel.
We have all 3 of those guys right together. Minka Fitzpatrick is the X factor because he's not a perimeter corner. I don't know if anybody's going to try and make him a perimeter corner. I think he could do it, but he's not apples to apples with those guys who are true number 1 shutdown perimeter boundary corners at the next level. Minka Fitzpatrick is something else altogether, but every bit as good.
Yeah, and Minka Fitzpatrick is that classic guy that can play the slot, play the run, rush the passer, and maybe covering the slot is as valuable, if not more, at the next level. Denzel Ward has those skills. Here's what I love, man. He's not one of the 6-foot guys, but he's still in that 1st round mix because he's got speed and quickness. He was one of the fastest guys on the Ohio State team, almost 4.3 guy, straight line, but his quickness is incredible. His footwork, his ability to cover slot receivers, cover shifty receivers. Now that is so valuable in the NFL because we've seen these big, long corners. They can't cover Antonio Brown. They can't cover the Julian Edelmans of the world, the better route runners, the Odell Beckhams. You need a guy like Denzel Ward, even if he's not that 6-foot corner.
And he's got ball skills. He's got the ability to play the man at the catch point, not just find the ball, but rake the arms, make sure the pass doesn't get there. He also shows a good feel for zone coverage, which is not something you necessarily see all the time from those Ohio State corners that play religious man coverage with their eyes on the receiver the whole time, never look anywhere else.
They never find the ball at Ohio State.
They're not instructed to. They're told, only play the receiver. Don't look for the ball. The thing that everybody wants to see corners doing, turn, find the football, swat it away. They're told not to do that.
But they play
Find
through the receiver pretty well at Ohio State.
Yeah, that's the thing. They have a different technique. There's a way of stopping that guy catch the ball without having to bat it away before it gets to him. You wait until it arrives, you put your arms between his arms, and you make sure he can't get 2 hands on the ball and secure it.
Yeah, so we like Denzel Ward. What about Josh Jackson in his season at Iowa? One of the best we've seen in the PFF era.
He is a ball hawking type of cornerback. He doesn't have the phenomenal workout numbers that a guy like Denzel Ward has, but he's got this incredible ability to find the football. Again, like Ward, to contest at the catch point as well as making plays on the ball itself. He will fight all the way through the reception. I think he can be a fantastic turnover machine at the next level. Now, Steve, we don't have the kind of time for you to do your full Derwin James eulogy or monologue. So let's give us the truncated version of the Derwin James monologue here.
You've been using the phrase the perfect football player for 2018. That's Derwin James.
Oh, it was really truncated. Well done.
Oh, okay. Do you want to know why?
A little bit more, yeah.
Okay, so he's a safety by name, but he's a playmaker. That's his true position. He can rush the passer like a real edge rusher, which you just don't find safeties doing. 6'3", 215, can cover slot receivers, can cover tight ends. He's a force against the run. When you sum it all up, though, he came in as a true freshman, had the best grade among all safeties in the nation as a true freshman, gets hurt as a sophomore, bounces back last year, top graded safety in the nation last year as a junior. So yeah, I could go on and on about a specific skill set, but when you sum it up with top graded safety, the 2 years that he had a full season of play, and he did it in all phases, run defense, coverage, rushing the passer, Derwin James, I'm calling him a top 5 player in this draft, a defensive playmaker, that you just find a way to put him on the field and let him play.
If you want to see the full story of Steve talking up Derwin James, you can find his article on ProFootballFocus.com. Just Google Pro Football Focus Derwin James. You'll find Steve waxing on endlessly about him. But we're gonna move on from now.
He's great. I love him. So here's the thing with DBs in today's NFL. You hear about offenses and it's about matchup weapons. You need something to counter that. So it feels like the second, third, fourth rounds here, when we look at our draft board, it's all about matching those weapons. There's a bunch of guys who can cover the slot. There's a bunch of safeties who can play strong safety, play free safety, play linebacker, do all these different things.
And the way I've said it before is that tweener used to be a bad word. It used to mean that you were stuck between positions. There was no place for you to play at the NFL level. Those guys tended to crap out pretty quickly because teams just tried to shoehorn them into one of those positions. Now, guys that would have been called tweeners in the past, they're matchup weapons. They're guys that, they're safety bodies that can cover tight ends in the slot. They can cover wide receivers in the slot. They're guys that aren't quite one thing or the other, but they do a bunch of different things well, which helps you to defend guys that typical position body types just can't match up with.
So let's highlight some of these corners that we have in the second round first. Dante Jackson out of LSU, Mike Hughes out of UCF, J.R. Alexander out of Louisville. There's a lot of guys just we lumped together. Those are all 3 other sub 6 foot guys.
Smaller guys.
They've got some slot potential. They've got some return potential. Really good athletes. They cover those shifty receivers pretty well.
Yeah, those are 3 really good guys that any of those 3 I think could get pushed into the first round depending on what teams need and where the corners go. You know, if those first 3 guys go off the board early, there's a big gap before you get to these guys, at least on our board. I could see any of those 3 being pushed up because of that. And I don't think it would be crazy. I think those guys could get taken in the first, make those kind of impacts. Dante Jackson out of LSU in particular has experience in the slot, can play outside and inside, has incredible speed. There's a route to early contribution for those 3 in particular.
So who else do you have as your guys? We have safeties and corners lumped here together. Give me some other names to watch that you've really noticed on film.
All right, I'll give you one. I'll give you a corner and I'll give you a safety. The cornerback out of Tulane, Parry Nickerson, has one of the best interceptions you'll see in all of last season on tape. One-on-one, isolated down the field on a skinny post. He just elevates over the wide receiver, catches the ball from over the top of him, then gets up and finger wags the quarterback from 55 yards away. That is NFL caliber play right there.
You gave him extra style points for that?
Hell yes, I did. The other player
also ran a 4.3 too. I mean, that'll
help.
That's where people noticed him at the combine, and we were saying, man, there's a lot of production.
And he flashed on tape for us years ago when we first started doing this. He jumped off the tape and continued that. The other guy I noticed, Marshall safety, C.J. Rivas. Interesting story, Steve.
I've heard this.
You may have heard it by now. It turns out he was a pretty big recruit. He was at Virginia Tech, I think, ended up getting kicked out of the college, found his way onto Last Chance U, the TV show. East Mississippi Community College, was one of the stars of that show, got himself back to Marshall, and actually had some really good grading last year. Is a player that can play both safety roles. I'm a little bit concerned about his tackling ability, not always the most secure thing, but I think he can be a free safety that can cover the slot as well. And really, I think he's got rare movement skills for a guy that is not on many people's radars.
No, I mean, that skill set, one of my guys has a similar skill set. It's Damon Webb from Ohio State. You mentioned free safety that can cover the slot. Webb is one of those guys, I don't want him in the box playing the run. I don't think he can cover tight ends, but can cover slots, and he's just got really good lateral agility as a free safety. The other guy we have to highlight, Tarvarius Moore out of Southern Miss. He's another safety that can cover receivers.
Yeah.
And this is what we want out of our safeties. And as we put our safety board together, we had to mention, well, this guy's a dime linebacker and this guy's a strong safety. With Moore, he can kind of do it all. He was our top graded guy against the run, but then he can go and cover slot receivers. That just brings so much versatility to a defense. Another guy at a pro day ran in that 4.3 range. So we love it when guys that that play really well on film, grade really well for us, also back it up with a good workout.
Yeah.
That's what really hits home for us as we're putting this whole board together.
Makes it so much easier to to push them up the draft board as opposed to the guys that have a workout kind of like you would produce. They become much harder to argue for.
Oh, you would not. You would be so impressed
Yeah?
by my workout.
Really?
Well, when you put the speed score together and know that I'm, about 270, 6'10", 270, and I'm moving pretty well for my size.
For your size.
As long as you put that in there, I'm looking pretty good.
Okay.
Does that about wrap it up? That's our draft class.
We're out. We're done.
That's our draft class. We'll have so much more over on the PFF YouTube channel, over at ProFootballFocus.com, over at Sports Illustrated on draft night. We're going to be all over the place, so go ahead and check out PFF Edge and Elite. That's where you can get our draft guide, all of our draft coverage, because it's everything you need as we head in to the NFL Draft.